Yeah.
So next up, it is time for the wrap-up panel. I'm going to introduce you to your panel moderator, and she's going to introduce you to the rest of your panelists. So Kelly Smith is the Senior Manager for Digital Networks at Cadillac Fairview. I am really looking forward to this wrap-up panel today. She's going to be awesome. So Kelly, whenever you are ready, the floor is all yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I want to introduce to you some friends that I've got with me today. We've got Michael Katz from Signage and Tony Green from Snap Install. And we've been watching the sessions along with you guys all day. So we're going to go through some of our key takeaways, talk about our thoughts, talk about what's trending. I want to start with talking about the keynote. And I'll be really honest, every time I have a chance to hear Laura Davis Taylor talk, I'm always left with something that I take away or something that sticks with me. And without fail, this time it was right at the beginning when she said that this is a springboard decade. I wrote that down in my notebook so that I can think about it as I go about my own work and I don't forget it. And then she showed all those really awesome examples of work that had been done through the award submissions and talked about the use cases that we didn't even see coming in 2020. Which industry segments there's looking for growth, and there was just so much to take away from that. And so, Tony, Michael, Tony, you first. What has you excited about the next decade, and how do you think that AV integrators can get on board with that?
You know, in general, as we hear a lot of people talk, we hear a lot of common terms or trending words, I like to call them. More importantly, I'm really excited for 2021 in general, right? We see a lot of the terms and a lot of the different shifts in the environments out there. And, all we can do is hope that we come together and we really see these trends continue to go upwards. And the main way we're going to do that's together. And, as we go into a lot of the speakers today, they had a lot of common things in common, right? We all got to succeed. We got to adapt. We've got to understand the strategy, the engagement. And Laura Davis Taylor, she always surprises me, like she does to you, and probably everyone else she talks to. And one of the things that stuck with me outside of the springboard was follow the pain. We've really got to come together and figure out what are those safety features. How do we get that message out, and more importantly, how do we reach the audience?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. What about you, Michael?
So I thought that the large digital signage projects, that are not limited anymore to just for-profit companies. So a lot of the projects that she was talking about, Toronto Eatery Case Study, Samelkara Real-Time Art, Connecticut Children's Hospital, and the Arctic Refugee Experience, those are all nonprofits. Years ago, it used to be large enterprise accounts, financial institutions, media, entertainment. They spend millions of dollars on these projects. So now the nonprofits now are getting into large digital signage. So my thought process is don't just focus on necessarily the high-end financial companies. Nonprofits, need help too. And so I would say that AV integrators should focus on where the pain is, as Laura mentioned. But now the pain is shared by many more people and many more companies. It's not just the high end you need to focus on.
That's absolutely true. There's sources of funding coming across a lot of different industry verticals from a lot of different places. Sorry, Tony, were you going to say something?
No, yeah, and outside the funding, she talked a little bit about the beyond the box, right? It talked a lot about the distribution of content, smart spaces, the omni-channel fluidity. A lot of those things really bring a lot of the conversations we're probably going to have today as we recap everything is. There's a lot of partners out there. Let's utilize those resources. Get out there, network, talk to people. If you don't know, it's okay to ask questions. And that's really the purpose of, today's conversation is to understand what is out there and what are your options.
Absolutely. So then we went on to our next session, From Hardware to the Cloud, with Jeff Hastings from BrightSign. And one of the things that he said that made me think, and I mentioned you guys in our other chat, was that what's happening on the screen is the experience. And I thought that was really interesting because it's not just about selling the technology for the sake of the technology. It's about the experience that you're creating and using all the different technology as the solutions to do that. And as well, early on in the day, this other part of it started to emerge as a theme, and that was planning for the use cases today, but setting up for success for tomorrow. So you're not just solving for now, but as 2020 has taught us, being prepared for whatever use cases could come your way. And so I'm wondering, what did you guys take from this session that could help an AV integrator do this and be prepared for this, but it would also help their clients thinking about scalable solutions and whatnot? Michael, do you want to go first this time?
Sure. So one of the things that he talked about was the cloud. When we talk about the cloud, which is a server farm, actually, I've had to explain it over the years. I was lucky to start in data storage and backup, which actually started the term the cloud many years ago. So people literally look up at the cloud. I'm like, it's not the cloud. It's a server farm that you connect to, and there's a lot of security involved. So one of the things that a lot of financial companies and governments have been doing over the years is they have on-prem equipment for security reasons and other types of reasons. So now the cloud is becoming more acceptable, and companies are moving to the cloud from on-prem, or they have a hybrid. So some more critical applications are on equipment literally on-premise, or they go to the cloud for other types of applications. So one of the things that we can talk about, and I was in AV for a number of years, is educating clients the difference between the cloud and on-prem, and AV integrators really should know this. It's not like it's something that you can read. You really need to understand the difference and go to, if you can, maybe after the pandemic, you go to a co-location facility and understand what is the difference between the equipment sitting on the client site or the equipment at a data center that someone else is managing, and what are the advantages to that. One of the advantages, which you always discuss, is in the cloud, you don't have to necessarily go on site anymore, so there's no travel. That's a big thing now, right? You don't want to travel on site. You don't necessarily have to go to each client site because it's connected through the internet or through the intranet or a VPN or something like that. And you can access the information without having to go on site. You can do it remotely. The other thing is that there's obviously a lower cost in having things shared over the cloud rather than having application on one device and another application on a second device. So I think the important thing is the difference between, which he mentioned, between the cloud and on-prem equipment.
Yeah, great points. Right, yeah. Some of the takeaways I took is, he really talked a lot about the endpoints in the beginning and really saying it's more than just the screen and players, right? It's understanding it, and it's not what you want to create and engage, it's what does that customer want to create and engage, and how to identify that. Even now, outside of the cloud-based platform, you look at the player platform. Use the system that's designed for that, right? It's the lifelong debate of consumer versus commercial. Yes, you can save money on consumer-based products, but it's not designed for that. It's not designed to run 24/7. It's not designed to run a network of 10,000 endpoints. It's really designed for that specific use, and that's, again, it's about educating yourself and understanding what you're going to be installing. And I got to give Jeff a shout out. He threw something at me, and I'm definitely probably biased, but he talked about, don't forget about those services. It's about that planning, preparation, but it's also about how do you deploy that and how do you service that after the fact if you are not able to do it remotely. So,
absolutely, yeah. It amazes me how often the consumer versus commercial conversation still needs to be had. So that's I'm happy to have it reinforced whenever possible. So then our next session that we listened to was Wayne Razor from Fast Signs taking us through Digital Signage 102. And I absolutely love this session and similar versions of it that I've heard before. Because, and I'll plug the DSF Educational Committee here, which Wayne is on, and Tony and I are also a part of. And that session is such a great example of the kind of little bite-sized learning pieces that come from that group and that the DSF has put together that you can get access to. So I love that this session shows just how many market segments use digital signage, even if that's not what they call it or how they think about it. But one of the things that Wayne really stressed was that it's really important to know your goals in order to be successful. So I want to hear from you guys. When you're talking to a new client or a prospective client, how do you draw that out from them to get them to really understand what the goals are rather than just a screen for the sake of it? Tony?
Yeah, it again goes back to that planning and preparation and making sure you have the right partners. As a service provider, we get brought in a lot at the end of a project where you think it might be at the beginning, but it really does come into a lot of conversations and a lot of different partners. There's a lot of great CMS providers out there, a lot of great manufacturers, a lot of great distribution. And it really comes down to, what does that customer want? How do you identify that? And more importantly, how do you deploy that? And how do you make sure that when you go through these year-long RFPs, which is one of the questions we just had in the polls, how do you identify a lot of the unknowns and making sure that when that product is deployed, are they getting their ROI out of it, or ROO, right? It's kind of a combination of those conversations. It's not about, can I get my money back on that? It's what efficiencies are out there? What can I do to help get the message out, especially a lot with COVID going on? And more importantly, keeping people safe. Like, that was a big part of the conversations today that brought a lot of things together, is how do we get that message out? How do we protect people? And how do we make sure people are on the same page?
Michael?
Yeah, I'm going to add to that. So we talk about the return on investment, and we talk about ROE, return on experience. So what's the end user experience going to be? On the bottom of my email, I say I'm focused on the end user experience. So you could talk about savings, you can talk about different types of equipment, but what is it that someone's going to see or hear at the end of the day? At the end of the project, what do you want them to see? What do you want them to hear? What do you want them to do? Like a wayfinding we talked about, which we'll talk about in the future in a couple of minutes, but it's about where someone needs to go in a building. You need to plan that out now. You can't just walk around aimlessly because of the pandemic, and maybe even going forward, that might be a thing where, okay, you know what? We're going to stick with this plan. We'll stay with wayfinding. You have to know exactly where you're going, and you have to have everything set up before you even go into the building. Maybe it's everything goes to our phone, and we know exactly where we're going, and people aren't necessarily wandering around as they did in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and Wayne pointed out there was. Oops, sorry.
No, please.
Oh, good. Gotta love the virtual conversations, right? No, I was going to say, Wayne did point out a lot of things that you might not think about, but there's a lot that goes into putting that screen on the wall, and it does start with a lot of conversations and design. It just there's so much to getting that content to that screen that you've really got to think about that and really figure out as a company, where do I start? And there could be a lot of different answers depending on that environment that you're looking to put it in.
Yeah, and another thing is, sorry to interrupt again. I just want to point out that this is not practiced, just so everyone understands. We're going kind of on the cuff, as it were. So one of the things you mentioned, very important, and I've learned this in the time frame I've been here at signage. The conversation really starts with the content. It's almost like the end of the project should become the beginning of the project. I've been in situations where we're literally at the end of the project, and the client's like, "Oh, you know what? We want to change what we want to put on the screens, and we're almost done with the project." So you really have to talk about the content, creating and designing the content at the beginning of the process, not at the end. That's really the key, and that's what he mentioned as well.
Yeah, I'm going to add about designing the content, because he mentioned that video is great, but it's not mandatory. So I also think it's important also to remember that, everyone you want your beautiful content, you want it to look great all the time, but sometimes a simple message is what needs to go up. And if that's text, if that's an image, that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect every single time. It just has to work. So.
Yep.
And like Wayne said, keep it simple, right?
Absolutely. I can hear that in his voice. If you're listening, Wayne. So then we had two different new technology lightning rounds. They were a little bit separated, but I think let's talk about them together. There was a lot of great stuff that we saw today from six different manufacturers. I want to give a shout out to Sony, Epson, Clear Digital, Samsung, Daktronics, Nanolumens. All of you, they all showed us what's new and great and exciting from them. So, guys, what is the most exciting thing that you guys saw today? Michael, you first this time?
Sure. I mean, I always find this fascinating. I've been in AV a while prior to this position, and when you have meetings with vendors, manufacturers, a lot of the salespeople will go into model numbers, and you look at them like that doesn't help me. I don't know. I don't care. what is it going to do for me? What is it going to do for my client? How is it going to help me? So they're talking about really the features and the flexibility of the new technology. To me, that's very interesting. You talk about, you know, the colors of a Sony screen or something, and then you know, Epson talks about the flexibility of using a projector. You can actually move a projector around, which is true. It's difficult to move a video wall around when it's hung on a wall. So I like the fact that they're really focused on the features and the functionality. That's very important.
I really liked, you know, especially when you looked at Jim's conversation with Daktronics. He had a couple things that hit me pretty well, and that had to do with, you know, protecting your investments and kind of the, you know, understand what you're buying. And he used some very nice pictures of Tom Hanks and Nick Nolte. But that really struck a chord with me. As funny as that was, and even watching the presentation, I laughed a little bit. Regardless of the technology and how new it is, or if it's older technology that's continuously getting advancements, it really came to protect that and understand what you're buying. And it goes back to the consumer commercial. You can save money in a lot of ways, but those cutting corners, that investment over time is going to end up costing you more and more money. It could cause you a lot of headaches. It could cause you a lot of pain. I know you used a few examples, but you know, looking at unique technologies, you look at LEDs, as you look at LCDs or screens or displays, even the projectors. It's a lot of different types of technology that can be utilized in a lot of different environments. And, you know, as a consumer or a customer looking to integrate this into their systems, you've got a lot of options out there. It really is. It's coming to that customization aspect of, you can really do what you want. I mean, there's the sky's the limit. The technology's there. It's now a matter of what's your investment and what do you really want to, you know, get out of that in the end, really. And the lightning rounds really opened my eyes that there is a lot of different options out there in a lot of different spaces, a lot of different environments.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually a great segue right into the next session that we saw, which was the one on projection. Whether I'm seeing it out on, you know, out in public or at a trade show, or even just seeing pictures of it and things coming up in my Instagram feeds, I cannot see projection without feeling inspired and coming up with big ideas. There's just so much cool things that that you can do there. And so I've kind of got like a two-part question here. So the first one is, what are your thoughts on like object blending or storefront displays using projectors?
You know, if you asked me that 5 years ago, I might have a different opinion, but with where the technology is and the brightness and the applications that are out there, it's sky's the limit there. I know Remy talked a little bit about the, you know, kind of immersing the digital versus physical world. And it's incredible that you can have that sense of feel. Standing in water was one of the examples, but yet you're surrounded like you're in an aquarium, and you get that experience of being in that area. And, you know, they use the term Instagrammable. I had not heard that before. Kelly used it earlier today too, and I heard Remy mention it when she was talking with Nicole, but it's true. Like, I mean, especially in light of COVID and limited travel, if people are going to take that opportunity to get out of their home and go somewhere, they're going to want to go somewhere to really experience something fun. And this could be a safe way to do it too.
Yeah, I saw that the one with the onto the dinner table, and I would like a ticket to that. I don't know what that is. I think I remember seeing that before, but I want to see something in my city where I can go and experience that. Michael?
Yeah, so it's funny. It just reminded me of an Infocom a couple of years ago, and you walked into the floor, and there's a car that looks like a giant toy. There's nothing on it. There's no lights, and all of a sudden the projection comes on, and all these things are projected on it. And you had, let's say, 10 people looking at this car. As soon as the projected images come on, literally just waves of people would walk over and look at this. Like, what are we looking at? Like, it was almost mind-boggling. So I thought it was very interesting, and in fact, the Epson chart that she showed, kind of a comparison of LED video walls and the Sony or the laser projectors. I thought that was interesting, very helpful, because the challenge, and when I had this at AV, working as an AV integrator, what do you say to a client when they say, okay, I understand what content I have, I understand the experience I want to have. Do I use a display, a giant display? Do I use a video wall? Do I use a projector? That's still, and as time goes on, I think it becomes even harder and harder, because Remy mentioned that you can now take an area or a space and using projector, you have a lot more flexibility because you can literally move the projector around, put it on the ceiling, whereas a video wall display is traditionally on a mount on a wall, and that's going to change when we talk about film strips, which is coming out as well. I've seen that a few years ago. So I think the challenge for the AV Integrator is understanding the features and the functionality and the value, like I said before, and then saying, okay, so we're going to do a 98-inch display, or we're going to do a 120-inch video wall, or we're going to do a projector. And by the way, the projectors now, there's no more bulbs or lamps anymore. So the cost effectiveness of the projectors is incredible now, because it used to be you'd have the consumable bulb or the lamp, and you had to figure that into the cost over the 5 years you had the projector, and the cost of these consumables was more than the cost of the projector. You don't have to do that anymore with laser projectors. So unfortunately for the AV integrators, the engineers, the salespeople, it's become harder to determine, well, what's the application and then which device do I use? I actually had to show a client a few years ago the difference. I said, okay, here's a laser projector, and then here's a display, and I literally had to show them the differences because they didn't really understand which way, and they went with the laser projector, which I thought was the right way to go.
You actually answered the second question. That's great. Is when would you consider when would you consider projectors versus displays versus video wall, and how do you make that decision if it's not something that's right off obvious based off of the use case? Tony, did you have anything to add to that?
I think it's about the fact that you have a lot of options. I mean, you really do. I mean, you can look at, when you think of projectors, you think just picture on the wall, right? Put it in a conference room, and that's what it used to be. The fact, they talked a lot about the interaction, the engagement, it's projection mapping, you got overlapping. There's a lot more options out there, and I think it really depends on the environment and what you want to accomplish. But they're making it easier. She showed the tablet usage where she can go onto that projector and she can lower images and put them on there without having to, as an integrator, going up to the projector and actually having to move that or calibrate it from the bulb. And I mean, the technology's there. So I really think it matters. What does the customer want? And I know I keep going back to that, but it kind of holds true in this case that there are options, but what is that customer looking to get out of that final product?
Absolutely. It brings us back to that theme we keep seeing all day of understanding our goals and understanding our clients' goals, and having the resources to choose the right solution for them. Let's go on to wayfinding. I think we're doing pretty good for time, which is great, because wayfinding is a topic that I think I feel like we almost couldn't have done it justice in the 30 minutes that we had. We could do an entire conference on wayfinding if we really wanted to break it down. From finding meetings to finding locations in a building to space utilization, and across so many different verticals: offices, campuses, shopping centers, hospitals. Sean mentioned that the challenges between figuring out who wants the solution and figuring out who owns the solution. And I find that this is actually a common issue across a lot of different applications of digital signage. So I'm curious, how do you solve for this when you're through your sales process, when you're trying to make sure that your clients are getting set up for success, identifying who wants it versus who's going to own it going forward if it's not spelled out by them? Michael?
So it's funny, I just recently had a situation working with a church actually in Long Island, and the administrator kept saying, well, I just want wayfinding. I just want wayfinding. So obviously someone taught him the term wayfinding. I said, so exactly what do you mean by wayfinding? What do you want them to do? Well, I want them to come in, see the map, and then go to where it is. I said, so you need the information on where the events are and what events are taking place that day, and then they change. So I'm still educating him on top of whoever we spoke to before. But the challenge with wayfinding, it's very large. It's almost like digital signage and wayfinding are intermixed, but you have to figure out, again, going back to the end user experience, what do you want the end user to see, hear, or do? And you want to look at the map, not to use the term map, on the wayfinding device, and then say, okay, this is how we want it to be now. And a lot of times people say, well, I'm going to keep this forever. Okay, that's not true, because your events change, and your events are going to change maybe every hour. So that means that the information on there is going to change every hour. So when you say that your wayfinding is not going to change, That's not true. It's going to change. You just have to plan for it. So I think wayfinding is a big challenge, and as time goes on, all the malls that we eventually will go back to, I've seen wayfinding where it's just a sign, right? It's just non-touch, non-interactive. They're all going to be digital, and they'll all be eventually on the phone. You walk in, you figure out where to go, and if you don't have a phone that you have the app on, everything's going to be digital signage in malls, stadiums, and office spaces, office areas, lobbies, everything in the city, in New York City. They're like every few blocks is a wayfinding kiosk. So I think they're going to be all over the place very soon, if they're not there already.
Tony?
Yeah, outside of who owns it, really the big thing I took from it was just how adaptable the wayfinding technology is, right? You talked about it could be static, it could be standard. I loved how Sean pointed it out, and I know the Rave team talked about it, where he did bullet point it and made it easy to follow. But really knowing that this technology, and going back to Lord Davis Taylor and going back to Jeff Hastings, that things can adapt, things can change. This is perfect technology if you're looking at that. How do you future-proof that? You talked about this has the speech capabilities. It's got visual. It's got the mobile with the QR codes. It's got touch-free. They're kind of integrating all that technology into one. And Jeff talked a lot about ruggedizing your system for the future and being able to adapt. And I think that goes into a lot of cases. But I think wayfinding especially, it depends on the content and depends on the message, and customers really want to have that be perfect. But Mike, as you mentioned, that might change tomorrow. We might have that up. They might want to have that touch functionality. Tomorrow they might want it to be mobile only. Maybe they want to shut the screens off for a few days and have it be strictly mobile and go more online. Maybe they don't want it to be touch functionality. Doesn't mean you're wasting the technology. It means you have the ability to do what's comfortable to the customer.
Absolutely. All right, so we have just shy of 5 minutes left, and I want to save a minute for you guys to tell everyone how to get in touch with you guys. So let's kind of bring this all together. And overall, if we had to summarize today's learnings into like one or two takeaways, the themes that we thought were more present than others, and what all of our speakers really want AV integrators to walk away from this with, what would you say that is? Tony, you want to go first this time?
I think the first thing is options. The fact that we can't be together and be at trade shows and see this technology firsthand, utilizing the D-Sign, and special shout out to Rave and all the sponsors of the VIXA and DSF. I think my big takeaway is there is options, and there's people to talk to and utilize that, which goes into my second piece, is that education, understanding the technology, learning the new stuff, doing your research, and really kind of, having fun with it. This is a fun industry, and it's a lot of great people, and I miss a lot of people, but doing this and getting our face out there and getting to say hi to a lot of people has been a great experience, and I'm extremely appreciative to be a part of this.
Yeah. Michael? Yep.
So I would say one word: communication. You communicate as an integrator, communicate to your client communicates back to you. And I always try and over-communicate. I actually had a potential client many years ago that said my company was sending him too many informations about the service. And I said, I think that's good, isn't it? He's like, well, I don't like that. I was like, okay, so maybe we're not the right client, right vendor for you. Like if you're getting service tickets, you want to know if there's a problem so you can react to it. But I think the most important thing is communication. If you can understand your client and they're truthful, some don't necessarily tell you 100% of the truth. They keep it back for whatever reason. Usually that's the key to having a successful project and long-term relationships.
Yeah. That's great, guys. Thanks. I'm just going to add a couple of the other themes that we had captured together. I think understanding your goals is something that we heard a lot about. There's room for growth in this industry. There's opportunities to provide additional services to your customers, and working together to future-proof our installations, because we've learned this year we truly don't know what the future holds. But if we can be ready for it, then we can adapt quickly and be successful. So with that, I want to give each of you guys an opportunity just to tell our audience how they can get in touch with you if they want to continue this conversation or learn more about the companies that you guys work for. Michael?
Sure, you can email me, mkatz@signage.com. That's zignage.com.
Tony?
Yep, and mine is tonyg@snap-install.com. And all my info is on LinkedIn as well.
Same.
And as well, I believe that all of our LinkedIn profiles are linked in the speaker bio session of the agenda. So with that, I'll give 90 seconds back over to Rave.
All right, that was so great. Thank you, Kelly, Michael, and Tony. That was the best wrap up that I could have ever asked for today.
Can we quote you on that?
Hit on all the points.
Yeah.
Yes, quote me on that. You can write it down. I will verify.
Writing it
I
down.
am Steph Beggett, and I approve this message.
Oh, good.
But I did want to ask really quickly before I let you guys go, if you could pick a session from today, each of you, what would you say? I'll let you do maybe two of your favorite sessions from today, each of you. What would you say?
For me, I would say Laura Davis Taylor and the Wayfinding session.
Michael, you go ahead.
Michael, what did you think?
Oh, okay. So I would say, I'd say Laura. I like Laura and I like Wayne's because that's more of my world. Making sure you have the right questions, making sure that you understand what the client's looking for, the end user experience as it was.
And I'm going to plead the
Tony,
fifth.
take us home.
I'm gonna plead the fifth. I really think this was organized in a perfect way, just so that you could get that kind of product flow of what you need to know, how you need to know it, who the players are in the game. But like I said, there's a lot of great partners out there, and it's great to see everyone come together as part of an industry and work together to get out of this.
No.
What Tony said.
Agree. I will let you. I will let him plead the fifth just this one time.
Thank you.
But thank you all again. That was such a fantastic wrap up. So on that note, Hanan and I will finish the day. Thank you guys again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.